Welcome to another edition of Touring the AFC South. Your host, Mike Patton. It's the playoffs. The regular season is over. The playoffs are here. And, of course, we have to talk about the playoffs. We got to talk about the teams that are in, teams that are out, and all those things around it. And I didn't want to do this by myself, so I brought in reinforcements. And that would be the host of the Drop Balls podcast, Mr. Chris Lewis. What's going on, man?
What's up, man? Thank you for having me on today.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. How you doing?
I'm good, man. Just recovering.
Recovering. All right. All right. Hey, that's good, man. It's good to hear. Now, speaking of recovering, man, I mean, I hate to start the show off like this, or the interview off like this, but man, one win to get in, 2 times.
Twice.
Can't beat the Raiders. Cannot Jaguars in Jacksonville. Now, I'm talking about the Indianapolis Colts. I don't know what happened. Maybe you saw something that I didn't see, but I'm going to leave it to you. Can you explain what happened with them not getting in the playoffs, just needing to win?
Yeah, man. I don't know. Like it's a lot different. The team looked a lot different from what was it, week 6 to like week 16. And then like week 17 and 18, you just saw them kind of like they were playing very lackadaisical. So like, we went into Arizona, we were shorthanded because of COVID and everything. And then you go to the Raiders the following week, we get everybody back. And, Darius Leonard, he's coming off the COVID list. Quentin Nelson, Ryan Kelly comes back from the thing with his wife and his daughter passing and everything. Um, and then Glowinski and Braden Smith, they come back. And then you just see like everybody that came back from COVID, they didn't look the same once they came back. And I don't know if because we saw it last year with Cam. Cam Newton, he was looking really good last year. He caught COVID, came back, and just didn't look the same. And the same thing you could say about, like I said, Darius Leonard and everybody else that came back. And I don't want to use that as an excuse, but you could just tell they weren't ready to play. And like even against Jacksonville, Carson Wentz didn't lose us that game, but he also didn't do anything to help us win that game either. And so I don't know, man. It was just all bad all around. And we don't play good in Jacksonville anyway. And so the fact that you don't play good in Jacksonville to start with, and then you go there and you just play like I don't know, man. It was all bad. It was all bad.
I hear you. I hear you. Speaking of not playing good there in Jacksonville anyway, the Indianapolis Colts have not won there since 2014. It's been that long. So, all around, you thought that the Colts would get in, and people were talking about much Austin. Now they're sitting at home watching the playoffs, and I know that had to be painful to watch the last 2 games.
Yeah, it was painful, but like the Jacksonville game wasn't surprising. Like I don't know if you saw it on Twitter. I even put some money on the Jaguars winning that game. I picked the Colts to win just because it's a game that you're expecting us to win. Like we expect to win that game, but I know the history of that rivalry or whatever, that divisional rivalry, and I know since 2014 we ain't won in Jacksonville. So I was like, all right, let me go try to make some money off of this game. But so it wasn't surprising. I mean, it was still disappointing because from week 6 through 16 we was rolling, and you would expect us to have won those last 2 games and got in, but it is what it is. We'll see what happens next season.
I hear you there. I hear you there. Definitely some decisions to make this off season as well. And of course, unfortunately, losing that first round, you're not making the playoffs. So, we'll see what happens. We'll see what happens with the Colts. But anyway, we got to talk about the teams that are in there.
Yes, sir.
One of those teams that is in there is the AFC South champion, Tennessee Titans. They go down to Houston. the first round bye is up on the line. They go in there up 21-0 at halftime. Houston comes back. Then they have a drive that was accompanied by a great play by Tannehill, escaping the sack, scrambling out to his right, throws a strike to Aquino. I can't remember all of his name. Excuse me for the fans of the Titans. I cannot remember all of his name. But anyway, he was wide open. He was a free agent out of Indiana. I know that. But anyway, he caught the pass, wide open on the sideline. Titans go in to score. They hold off the Texans, win the game, sew up the number 1 overall seed. You know, how the Titans do different things this year. I mean, what are your thoughts on them in the playoffs, especially with, of course, Derrick Henry coming back, Julio Jones having his best game of the season, essentially. Well, second best game. Seattle game was good, except for he didn't score a touchdown. But, which he did, but, that's neither here nor there. Yeah. But, yeah, what do you think about the Titans going into the playoffs?
So with the Titans going into the playoffs, they finished the season strong, and they did what they had to do in Houston to get the win. And Derrick Henry coming back rested and healthy, I'll take that any day of the week. And especially now, since they see what they have in Foreman, and they see they don't have to run Derrick Henry 40 times a game, they can give Foreman some of those carries because he was solid when Derrick Henry went out. And so I mean, it's if they can continue to click, and AJ Brown stay healthy through their playoff run, Julio stays healthy, it's a scary team. It's a scary team when they put everything together. And defense is playing really well for the Tennessee Titans as well. I mean, besides like the second half of that game where they kind of let up the let their foot off the gas, but their defense is playing very well. And I mean, I don't really know. I guess you can say Kansas City give them a run for their money, but at the same time, I really don't know because I don't trust Kansas City's defense.
Gotcha. Yeah, their defense is quite interesting.
Yeah.
Their defense is definitely quite interesting. I mean, ever since they acquired Melvin Ingram, their defense has been very good. But then again, you did see the game against Cincinnati where Jamar Chase did with anything he wanted to do in the game. And it didn't seem like a Kansas City defensive back was within like 10 yards of him. He even caught a pass and cut across the middle of the field and ran around them like you would see a mad character, when you got him under your control on the game.
Yeah, and so even last
that didn't inspire me about the defensive backs.
Yeah, even last game against who did they play this past Saturday?
Played against Denver.
Yeah, even against Denver, like I mean, I know it's a divisional game, but even against Denver, it's like Denver was able to do what they wanted to do. Drew Lock was running like he was Mike Vick or something back there and doing whatever he wanted to do. So, I mean, I don't know. I have a concern about the Kansas City Chiefs defense.
Yeah, it's definitely an interesting thing to look at from, you would never think you'd be talking about the Kansas City defense being the issue potentially again. But, the way the season started, you thought it may be the offense you'd be talking about.
Yeah,
but
for sure.
it is what it is. Of course, the Titans defensively, I would say, a guy that nobody talks about on the Titans defense, Harold Landry. He's there. Nobody even talks about him or brings him up. I mean, that front four, or I should say front five, because, they do run a 3-4, is probably one of the keys of that defense, along with David Long coming back off of the injured list as well. So that's going to be key, especially how Fulton does. I know Fulton caught an injury. I can't tell if it was arm, shoulder. I haven't really checked into that one as yet, but that'll be key as well because he's their best corner. He is their best corner. It's going to be interesting to see. Now, what I'm going to ask this. The Titans are the number one seed, but there is always someone out there. And I know you said Kansas City, but do you see Cincinnati as being a viable threat to win the AFC champion?
Um, it depends on what Cincinnati shows up. If it's the Cincinnati that we saw against the Browns, no. If it's the Cincinnati that showed up against who was it that they put up like 40 something points against? My bad, my son's
You can
making
name
noise. I
any
don't know.
team, probably.
Yeah, I mean they put up 40 against a lot of teams, but it was like a good defensively sound team that they went out there and put up 40 against, and they won the game. But so it just depends on what Bengals team shows up. If they can put it together and Joe Burrow goes out there and does his thing, Jamar Chase has the games he's been having along with T Higgins, they could very well make some noise in the AFC Championship and perhaps make the Super Bowl. I don't know, but they they have a chance. I think they have a chance. Honestly, when you look at the playoffs and you look at the teams that are in there, um, I think the Titans, the Bengals, Kansas City, and the Bills have and the Bills have a legitimate chance to make the Super Bowl. I'm not going to say the Patriots because I really don't think they do. I think their defense is good, but if you force Mac Jones to win you a game, it's probably not going to happen.
Gotcha. So if you had to pick today your AFC championship matchup and your representative for the ASC for the Super Bowl, who would those teams be?
So for the AFC, you said for the AFC championship? You said for the AFC championship? Um,
Yeah.
I would say number one and number two, Kansas City and the Tennessee Titans to make it to the AFC championship.
Mm-hmm. And who would you pick to win it all? Win the AFC, I'm sorry. If you had to say so right now.
If I had to say so right now, honestly, I think that the Titans would beat Kansas City and head over to the Super Bowl. So I think Kansas City, if they want to make it to the Super Bowl this year, they better hope somebody knocks out the Titans.
Gotcha.
I think I said it on
Well,
Twitter the other day that I'm rolling with the AFC South all the way through.
I hear you there. Now, if you, I'm gonna just throw this out there. Of course, there is a whole other side to this bracket, and that is the NFC. What team do you think, just to get the kind of the Super Bowl pick here, what team would you predict to win to do so right now?
Out of the NFC, I'm going with the Packers. The number one seed, I'm going with the Packers to come out the NFC. It goes through Lambeau, and Rodgers has some stuff to prove this year, especially after what happened last year, and then everything this off season. I feel like Aaron Rodgers, he has some stuff to prove, and I think he's going to prove it this year and shut some people up and everything because all the talk on Rodgers this year hasn't been about the season that he's had; it's been about the whole COVID stuff, and but I think he's gonna get it done and make it out the NFC Championship this year.
But we'll definitely see. Usually there's a one seed that makes it, and there's a surprise team.
That's
There's
for
usually
sure.
not over 2 ones that make it. So
That's for sure.
we'll definitely see what happens. I'm sorry, but yeah, thank you for coming on, man. I just want to let everyone where they can reach out to you, where they can listen to your podcast and all those things, man.
Yeah, for sure. So you can follow me on Twitter at DropBallsPod. You can listen to the podcast on really any major podcast platform. Just type in Drop Balls Podcast, it'll come up. I'm probably going to record an episode tonight. Haven't put out anything in I guess like a week or so. Just because of dealing what I've been dealing with. But yeah, I'm gonna put out one tonight or tomorrow morning. But yeah, just Drop Balls Podcast on any major podcast platform and take a listen.
All righty. All right. Well, thank you again for coming on. You've been listening to Touring the AFC South. I'm your host, Mike Patton, and we're out.
Thanks for having me.
Yes, sir.